All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Sales Vitamin Podcast. We've got a great guest today. You're going to get a lot of vitamins. You're going to get a lot of nutrients, and he's got over 17 years of selling experience. His name is Zeeshan Farooq. He works for Fluidigm. He's their Northeast region sales manager, and he's the senior region sales manager. Zeeshan, welcome to the show. I'm excited for everybody to hear you today because I love having people that are actually selling on the show and actually walking the walk and talking the talk, because that's where all the good practical information comes from.
Well, I love the intro. The intro gave me kind of goosebumps. I was like, oh, and then you added senior regional salesman. I was like, oh no, senior. Okay, I gotta sound like I know what I'm doing. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much for having me.
No. Hey, what's the worst sales advice you've ever received? If you could break it down, that's really, if you were to say to somebody, hey, don't do this.
Yeah. Early on in my sales career, I was walking into a meeting and brought a manager along, and the manager went to me and said, okay, look, we got to close this deal like in this meeting. And I was like, okay, yeah, we're going to close it. And I had a full frame of mind that I was going to go through exploratory questions and really understand what the lab needs, what they want. But then that stress came in and I was like new on the job. And I said, okay, let's roll with it. And it was a new company, and it was I was like 2 or 3 years into my sales career, but as many of us that are selling know, 2-3 years is nothing. You really gain experiences, over almost a decade, right? So I go in and I fumbled poorly. And it was not even like a fumble that I had a chance to recover. I started asking, but do you have money? It's like, do you have money? Like, okay, yeah, you ask money questions, but not, do you have money? It's like, like, oh, I don't see a lot of posters up, or have you published? It's like, oh my God, like all these things were coming out, and I could just see myself looking at myself from the outside. It was an out of body experience, just saying, Zeeshan, please shut up. Stop. And I would say that, anytime somebody tries to throw you off your game, like, hey, this must close here. Look, there's so much involved in the sales process that I've learned that even the notion of I'm going to close on this first meeting, look, a close can be many different things. It could be booking the second meeting or booking a meeting with somebody else more senior in the company. And I got to keep on reminding myself that yes, you want to go for the close, but it has to be at the respectful pace of the prospect of the customer also. So I would say the number one thing is be respectful and empathetic to where your customer's at, and listen to them. Like that rule of like, you should be talking 30% of the time and the customer should be 70%. That holds true. And even if they're comfortable, you just not saying anything besides hello in the beginning, stick with that. Just listen to them.
Yeah, it's amazing how the sales has had that shift of let's quit talking about us and talk about the customer, talk about them, talk about how we can add value and where can we impact their results.
Yeah, agreed.
You're in the biotech industry. So is that a challenging sale, or is there a lot more? So if you bring someone onto your team or someone's coming on to sell for your organization, is that a you really have to learn a lot sales position?
So, I mean, I've been blessed to have a lot of great mentors, right? And my mom said early on, like, Z, sometimes just shut up and listen, right? Just learn from people around you that have done it. So I had great mentors early on in my career, and they always said that, look, don't worry whether your company gives you training or not. Learn the product by asking customers that are using it. Because if you go to your own marketing team or you go to your own, product support specialist, they'll give you kind of their version of what are the key features, advantages, and benefits. But if you go to a customer, they'll tell you straight up, like, look, I like this, but I don't like that. Or I like this, maybe you could do this better. And really learning from customers allowed me to learn faster, and just getting out there and stumbling, but letting the prospect know that, hey, you know what? I'm new at the company. I know the product's a bit, but whatever I can't answer, I'll get the answer for you. That's a promise. That's key.
Yeah. What's your favorite sales channel and why? Where have you had the most success over your sales career, and what channel, or has that changed a little bit over time?
That's a great question. It's changed. It changes from quarter to quarter, from year to year. Right? It changes from my experiences year to year. I've been that rep that, I'll hold on to an opportunity for 3, 4 years. And
Right.
4 years later it closes. And, to whoever my manager is at that time will be like, oh, awesome, this deal came in. But somebody who's followed it with me is like, yeah, but Z stayed on it for 4 years. So for me, it's the patience and how tolerant I am of the risk will depend on what channel, right? It's going to come from whether it's a, air quotes, top account, or if it's what people call B or C accounts. I don't like those terminologies because every account is an A account when they're giving you a PO. Like at the
Right.
end of the day, right?
Right.
So my channels really at the leads when they come in from references. When somebody has said, hey, Zeeshan, I think such and such at this institute would be a great person for you to visit, because it makes me feel special because somebody actually is happy to let a sales rep talk to somebody else that they know, which is always great. And then when that turns into a relationship where they then purchase, that's, I find, the best way to sell.
Yeah. So that reference, it's a lot warmer.
A lot warmer, and it shows kind of, okay, I added some value because this person feels like I'll add that same value to a friend of theirs or a colleague in the industry.
How about email or even social media from an awareness standpoint? I know you're active on LinkedIn because I see you there and I see your videos, but how about email and just some of the other channels? Do you use those at all, or do you really rely on that reference?
No, so those channels get used heavily also, right? So reference, definitely, I look at that and the reason why I use that as the first thing, because that's the one that makes me the most comfortable, because
Yeah.
the reference has taken away all those barriers, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But then, after that, I like emails. I've started adopting my video into a PowerPoint presentation, like a 3-minute snapshot, like, hey, so-and-so, your institute has these researchers, based on what they're doing, might be awesome for you to think about this technology. And it'll be in a video, an MP4 file, not more than 8 or 10 megabytes. Send that over. That's been really resonating well because it goes on the timeline of the customer to open
Right.
it whenever they want to, adds a little bit of personal touch. So emails, the video emails, and hands down, LinkedIn, I've become very active on it even more over the past year or two, because I've been getting, people reaching out to me and saying, hey, here's my work email. Can we chat about so-and-so technology? Saw that you work at Fluidigm, or when I was at Kyogen, like about 7 years ago, then it wasn't as heavy on LinkedIn. I wasn't as involved on LinkedIn, and I didn't feel like LinkedIn was really rolling the way it's rolling now.
Right.
So those are emails, video emails, and LinkedIn, because I find that. And I had this conversation with the customer, and who's become a good friend of mine too. And he was like, what is the one sound that gives you the most anxiety during the day? I'm like, the one sound that gives, he's like, an unsolicited phone call. When your phone rings, there's an anxiety that happens. Like, oh, who's calling? I wasn't expecting a call. Like, is it my wife? Is it an emergency? Because everybody texts and does that. So I think about that for my prospects or my customers, that, hey, if I'm going to reach out to them, unless on the email we've confirmed, or, there's some kind of precursor to that phone call, I try not to, just because I want to respect and not raise that anxiety in them the way that it gets raised in me. But after 3, 4, 5, 7 emails or video emails, if I haven't gotten a response, then of course you pick up the phone and you call. But emails and video emails and LinkedIn definitely leads.
I think you're right. I think the video email is really taken off. I think it's in its infancy,
Yeah,
depending on who you're using, but it's a much warmer. And if you send enough of those, by the time you actually do get in touch with that individual, they kind of feel a lot warmer, like they know you a little bit better, rather than just the written email all the time.
it took me 13 takes to make my first one. It took me
Yeah.
20 for the second because I was overthinking it. So yes,
Yeah.
it's in its infancy, hands down. It is,
Yeah.
holding the phone and your arm's getting tired and you're like, wait a minute, this phone's coming down, getting a stand. But yeah, it takes time, it takes effort. Sometimes, the challenging thing that I find that I think it's across the board for many sales professionals is, with the current status of the globe, right, with the pandemic, prospects and even customers, right, are not getting back to us at the cadence that we're used to.
Right.
Right. So, you're like, okay, I'm spending like, an hour making this video email, I gotta be hustling. I gotta be closing. But the thing is, that too is adding value to what you're going to be doing. And then, like you said early on when we were chatting, with the podcast, as you've been doing it more and more, it becomes easier to edit, easier to get together and put together. So those
Right.
video emails will get easier. So I would say, like, for me, the advice to myself is just keep at trying different things, because at the end of the day, it's people remember that, hey, I didn't get back to this rep, but he reached out to me like 4, 5, 6 different times, and each time was something different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that when things get better, and they will get better, you want to be top of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. No, those are great vitamins right there. What's holding most salespeople back that you've seen over your career? What do you think the number one thing holding salespeople back from really being that top performer? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. It's such a loaded question. That's like a book on
Yeah.
its own, Like, one of my best friends from like almost 20 plus years. He had given me a book, and I'm forgetting the name right now. It's a tip of my tongue, and I'll email you the name of the book. But basically, it was a book that said that, hey, you have to come to terms with who you are professionally, right? Early on, when I was a sales rep, right, it was there was that negative connotation, like, oh, I don't want to be called a sales rep. I'm a sales consultant. I'm a business advisor. I'm anything but sales rep. And then the book pretty much said that, hey, the day you accept that you are a sales professional, you'll start having fun. And it was so true. Huh? I remember standing in front of the mirror. It was in Arlington, my apartment that I had out there, Arlington, Virginia. It was a creaky apartment. And I'm standing in front of the mirror. I'm like, Z, what the F are you? And I remember that conversation with myself. I said, you know what? And that night I went to a party and people were asking, hey, what do you do? Oh, I'm a sales professional. And when I got comfortable with that, John, it became next level fun, right? Because you walk in with pride. I'm so-and-so from such company. I'm your sales account manager, or I'm your sales professional, right? And you address yourself with that level of pride. People see that, okay, you know what? This rep is different from the others that come in kind of sulking a little bit like, I'm sorry to bother you. Yeah, I'm an annoying sales rep. No, you're a sales professional. So I'd say that would be the number one advice. And if you get into the game, get into it for the good reasons. A lot of people get into it and say, oh my God, there's going to be huge amounts of money, company car, and this. It's like, look, there is glamour in anything you do as long as you love what you do and you're true to yourself. And that I keep on reminding myself that. So that would be the number one advice that if I had, if I'm falling off of the side of a building and I got to give one advice before I fall off to the next generation of sales reps would be, hey, make sure you are comfortable with being a sales professional, because then you'll come from a good place and you really do want to help customers get the right solution, not just your solution.
Yeah. And I like the mental aspect you're talking about. I mean, you mentally had to frame that in your own self-fulfilling prophecy that I'm a sales professional until so you realize it and you actually become that. Now, what do you do, or what do you suggest to sales professionals that they do to make themselves mentally prepared to be a sales professional? And it may not be working on sales skills all the time. There's other things to do to make yourself mentally prepared, kind of like an athlete. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I love how you said that, like an athlete, right? I mean, I'm a big hockey fan. I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan. I know everybody out there that's not a Montreal Canadiens fan, you're probably saying boo or whatever. And I felt like you're going to ask that question, so I just kept a couple of things. It's like books.
Yeah.
Reading, as nerdy as that might sound, reading. And if you look at the book list, I just grabbed a bunch off of my bookshelf. You got Blue Ocean Strategy, you got, the 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing, but then I got Born a Crime, right? I've got another one that I left downstairs in the library. It says, Let Your Mind Run by Dina Castor. And that's, these are books that you learn about somebody else's life, somebody else's perspective. And you really understand that, okay, you know what, this person faced this challenge. And I promise you, any book you take anywhere, any book, whether it's a poetry book, a history book, nonfiction, fiction, you can draw some kind of inspiration or something out of there that you can apply to your life. So I'd say reading really helps the mind also get away from the computer a little bit, or else you get so stuck on the computer, right? And having a gratitude journal. So it's a Fluidigm notebook that I'm repurposing,
Right.
and I just a gratitude journal, and pretty much I put in entries in there every day. Again, it's just, and I always tell my daughters this. My youngest, God bless, is going to be 4 soon. My oldest is going to be 8 soon. But I always tell them that, hey, look, if you want to be miserable in life, and you can ask my wife, this is exactly how I talk to my kids too. It's like, if you want to be miserable in life, you could do nothing. Do nothing, and the world will find ways to make you miserable. That is a promise, right?
Yeah.
But if you say that, okay, life has its up and downs, but if you have a gratitude journal that you can be thankful for this bottle of clean water that I actually refilled from the tap, clean water from the tap, right? I could speak to relatives of mine that are in Pakistan and India and saying that you're getting clean water from the tap. They're like, whoa, 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 what do you mean clean water from the tap, right? Being grateful for that, or grateful for the fact that I have kids that are healthy. You know, I have a wife that loves me genuinely. Like little things like that, so that when life does hit you, and life's gonna hit you, man, in the face, right?
Oh yeah.
That you're like, you know what? I feel like crap, but then it's like, oh, whatever. Let me just check this red. And I do this. I keep it close to me every time. I open it up, and I'm like, you know what? It's not that bad.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. So I'd say that mentally getting yourself into that mindset of, hey, I'm training just like an athlete, but my training is not going to be shown on a basketball court or on the ice rink. It's going to be shown when I'm in the field with my customers, or when I'm prospecting, or when I'm giving a presentation. That's where you're going to see my performance.
Yeah. The gratitude journal is fantastic. I think, when you start just writing those water and just your family, and you can come up with them every day. That does put your mind to start the day without that negativity that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think that's powerful stuff. How about from a time standpoint and managing that time as a sales professional? Because if you don't manage that in that reading, that gratitude piece, or that review at the end of the day, or before you go to bed at night, how do you manage that? How does your day flow?
Yeah. Again, excellent question. I mean, that for me was, I was listening to Tony Robbins, and I told you I drive a lot. I love driving to my accounts just because I can hit up on the other accounts on the way. And in there, there was like, a lot of people say that, my 9 to 5 has grinded me down. I have no time to work on my side hustle. And then he's like, well, what are you doing from 9 to midnight? Right? Or Gary Vaynerchuk would finish up at his Pop's wine store or liquor store, come back, and afterwards work into the night. And I said, okay, you know what? If I look at the clock as a 24-hour clock, not as a, 12 to 12, but look at it at a 24-hour clock, I've got 24 hours to play with. And that is the number one equalizer for me, is that everybody, no matter how rich you are, how poor you are, what country you live in, what status in life you are, if I look at it as a 24-hour clock, I am able to carve out time to do a workout. I try to work out daily. I give myself challenges to get as much workouts in a 30-day segment as possible. I write regularly, I read regularly, but then again, I have to also prospect regularly. I've got my responsibilities to close sales, and I've got a team of application scientists to work with, communicate with, plan with. And so what I do is I wake up at between 4:30 and 5 a.m. Like I've built that discipline that, the earlier you get up, you've got control on that day because other people are sleeping, right? Your kids are sleeping, customers are sleeping, colleagues are sleeping, right? So I wake up at between 4:30 and 5. Sometimes my youngest wakes me up earlier, and let's say it's 3:45, I'll just stay up. But what I do is I don't just open up the computer then. Then I say, okay, I've got my list, right? So night before, I prepare a list of little things that, hey, got to make sure this prospecting email is out. Got to make sure that you get that project done. You're working out your chest today. And for reading a book, just read 5 minutes of Born a Crime, for example, right? So as much as I can get that done, so by 6:30, 7 o'clock, when we're making breakfast for the kids and we're sitting down to eat, I've gotten done a workout. I've gotten my post for LinkedIn, my social media posts on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, all that done.
Right.
Made an entry into the gratitude journal, and something the gratitude journal I'll do at night. But you see right there how much you squeezed in when your time is not being pulled by other people. So I'd say that the number one advice is, Arnold Schwarzenegger said it best. A lot of people say that, I need 8 or 10 hours of sleep. Just sleep faster. Okay, sleep faster, right?
Yeah.
You're look. Eventually, I'm a big fan of country music, and they always say, like, you'll sleep when you die, right? And that's a bad philosophy to instill, of like, oh, don't push yourself to the point that you get ill and you're sick and you're getting mentally like depressed stuff. No, but everybody I feel is sleeping more than they need to. And everybody is doing stuff that they don't really want to do, but they do it because they're doing it for the wrong reasons. So just sleep faster, get up early, tackle your day, and make a list the night before of some of the key things you'll do, because the endorphin rush that you get when you check a box, it helps you and motivates you to just keep on going to the next and the next and the next.
Yeah. What are you doing right now to differentiate yourself to your customers and prospects throughout the sales process? What are some things you're doing that's, when people say, hey, this Z, he sent me something, or he really differentiates himself throughout the sales process?
Yeah, for me, I've been fortunate and blessed to always have great colleagues, right? And I work with a great team of application scientists. I've got an awesome regional marketing manager, and I've got I've had managers so far that have also always gave me the latitude to do my job the best way that I see fit. Now that latitude continues because there's successes that happen, and when failures happen over 2 quarters, they're like, maybe we'll change a little bit, right? But what's differentiating me is that once a prospect does become a customer or we establish a relationship, they haven't bought yet, but we've communicated a couple of times, met a few times, they quickly see that my intention is coming from a good place. I'm not there to just sell a solution. And I always tell them in the first meeting that, hey, to you, I'm just a sales professional walking in here, and you're going to think that I'm going to try to force a solution on you. Maybe if I feel that this is the best solution based on speaking to many people for you, then I'll try my best to get you to see that this is the best solution for X, Y, Z reasons. Not for personal reasons, not for reasons that I got to close the sale so I can have a checkbox and get that commission check. And because listen, money comes, money goes. And having come from humble beginnings, seeing my mom and dad work the way that they worked is like money comes, money goes, right? But people will remember when you try to screw them over. Period.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of my customers, I'm hoping many of them have seen that okay, you know what, he's a sales professional that wants to work with honor. Like everything needs to be signed now, but I'm a type of dude that I take pride in knowing that when you shake hands with me, that's a locked contract because I've got God to answer to and I've got myself to answer to. So that's kind of that's what differentiates me, is how I approach the person and genuinely wanting to add value to their work or their life. Because you buy a technology from me, and if it's the right technology and it's working for you, oh my God, hey, I used the Helios and it worked well for me. I got this much more done in this short amount of time. I can actually stop coming in on the weekends to book time on the other instrument. I can spend time with my kids. Oh my God, isn't that an amazing feeling when you can do that for somebody? Give them time or allow them to get time to spend time with their kids.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
So that's what I feel that differentiates me, or at least it's been told to me that that's what differentiates me, is that I've got great teammates that I come with, and I've got the emotional intelligence to understand that it is genuinely about the customer.
Okay. Yeah, that's those
a
are
long-winded answer.
no, yeah. No, that's
passionate about it,
That's great stuff. What from a buyer's perspective, what have you seen change from a buying process recently?
It's the worry, right? I'd say that if you can just look at your own behaviors and see how a customer might be feeling, right? Even right now, are we making those purchases that maybe we don't need? We're really reevaluating need and want, right? So I think customers right now, the ones that knew that they need to buy the specific technology, whether it's, let's say, an imaging system, they're like, we still want to get it, but instead of this quarter, we might have to wait till next quarter or the quarter after, because we just want to see what are the budgets looking like. Are we going to have to shift our monies from immuno-oncology research to infectious disease research? Are we going to have to repurpose funds to buy the latest detector to do a lot of pathogen detection in the lab, buy different technology? So that's what's happening, is time is being delayed. Nobody is really coming back and saying that, hey, sorry, we're not buying anymore. It's more time is being delayed, that instead of this quarter. So that's what I'm seeing from a buyer's perspective. It's that concern of, will this money need to be repurposed for something else? Do I hold on to it or do I go, right? And at the end of the day, the customer, the buyer knows that the best. All I say to them is, let's sit down together and see if truly that is, if you need to hold on to that, or maybe we could think of another solution, maybe contract out your project to run on the technology so you can at least get your data that you need. You're not buying the system yet. And then when you feel more secure in spending, then you know what, hey, yes, we're going to buy our own now. But until then, we're sending it to your Therapeutics Insight Services lab, because we'll run it there and at least we get data so we can submit our grants and keep our work going. So we come up with different solutions, but the buyer timelines are changing.
Yeah. So that I work in a long sales cycle industry, the equipment leasing industry. So it's typically very long for the most part, 6 months to a year or even longer. And it sounds like in the biotech industry, that can be a longer sales cycle. And I think you have to be able to be a facilitator. There's typically, and I would say in your industry, is there more than one person involved in that decision for the most part? You're dealing with a lot
Yeah,
of decision makers. So talk about being able to facilitate a deal,
yeah.
and having that business acumen is huge to
Yeah,
be able to do that.
like I mean, so I'm gonna reverse that question on you just to ask,
Okay.
because this it's rare, especially now, during this time where everything is Zoom or you're not really around colleagues always. Like for you, when you are going through the sales process, like what has been the stumble that you look back on and you're like, you know what, I should have asked these set of questions to identify that other person that showed up at the end.
Yeah, I should have asked. In more of most of the time, I know who that end decision maker is, but I'll spend way too much time with the influencer,
Right.
where I need to be with that influencer for a good amount of time and have their input. But you know, for example, we just closed a deal, and it took us over a year to do it. We were dealing with one of the VPs,
Yeah.
and he was a very influencer, but he could not say yes or no.
Right.
And you
Right.
got to get to that person that either says yes or no eventually.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should bypass those decision makers, but that's where it comes into, you got to have that ability to say, okay, we've been talking and working long enough with here. It's time to move to the next stakeholder if we're
Yeah.
going to get a decision.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so same here. It's always, if I look back on all the sales that I have lost, right? Or the customer is still indecisive and it's been a long term that's been going on. And I'm like, you know what? I should have asked early on, like, who else is helping you in the decision making of this process, right? Because you look at, oh, this is a VP, or this is this is a CEO. Like in a lot of the small biopharmas, you have access to those titles, and then you're like, oh yeah, they're going to make the decision. It's the CEO, it's the VP. But then you realize, oh no, it could be someone at the bench that's going to help them that they trust, saying that, hey, is this going to work? Do we go with this or not? And is their trusted advisor, right? So I think early on, asking budget questions, maybe a little bit more tastefully than I did the first time around when I was younger in the sales career. But asking, how are you going to pay? Forget for the second that this is the solution that you may go with, but for any solution, have you budgeted money? That's a great question, because then the next question is, who is going to be the one that's going to release the funds for you to make the purchase? And then you see that they start thinking, because it's not saying that Mr. or VP or Mrs. VP or CEO or whatnot, that you're not important. But at the end of the day, are you going to be the one who's going to sign on the purchase order? And if it isn't, let's involve them now, because then you're wasting your time and my time. I mean, I get paid to speak to prospects, but you're wasting your time then, because if you do all this hard work and you don't get the instrument or the product you wanted, then you'll be disappointed also. And that's how I frame it.
Yeah. I got one more question for
Yeah.
you. Uh, but before we do that, last question, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they want to talk with Zeeshan, or Z, I guess is
Yeah.
what your friends call you. And
Yeah.
where can they get a hold of you and your organization?
Yeah. I mean, whenever I'm crossing the border of Canada, US, they always try to pronounce my name like sir or miss. Call me whatever you want. Just let me cross over. You can call me whatever. But to my friends and good customers of mine, I mean, Z is when I go with. It's a lot easier. Early on in the relationship, it's always Zeeshan, just because for me, it's something. When I was younger, having a name like Zeeshan, I wasn't Michael, or I wasn't John, or I wasn't Bill, so it was always made fun of, and I hated my name. But I got older, I was like, no, this is Zeeshan. I love it, right? So, but Zeeshan, Z, whatever is respectful. But LinkedIn. Honestly, LinkedIn is
Okay.
probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm active because the phone's always in my hand.
Yeah.
But if it's if it's anything related to mass cytometry, it would be zeeshan.farooq@fluidigm.com.
Okay.
But LinkedIn is the best source to get a hold of me, and there the topics can be a wide variety of topics. So Zeeshan Farooq, LinkedIn, and I live in Montreal, so you can differentiate from any other Zeeshan that you see. I'll be the one in Montreal, Quebec.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so I ask this question every guest, you've got
Okay.
one sales vitamin that you can give someone today to help them be a better sales professional. What's that one sales vitamin?
Resiliency. Resiliency. Take a capsule of resiliency because it gets challenging, right? It gets challenging. And you got to keep on reminding yourself that, hey, this process that I'm using, it has worked in the past. It's worked recently. Let me just keep at it. You'll fall down, you'll stumble, but let me keep at it. And be resilient. And whether it's following a specific mantra of how you sell, or whether it's, coming from having high emotional intelligence and you're like, I'm always going to be focused empathetically on the customer. Whatever your thing is, just be resilient. Because I feel that if you have a high level of tolerance and to be able to then get up, you will be happy in this game of sales. So that would be the vitamin. I'd say pop 2 pills in the morning, 2 in the evening of resiliency.
Yeah, the resiliency and persistence, I guess, is another word for that.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, it has been awesome having you on, Zeeshan. I'm excited. People are going to get a lot out of this episode, and I'm excited that you were able to come on and really throw some outstanding sales vitamins out there for everybody.
I thank you, John, for having me. And you know what? After this episode, I clearly being with you on live. It's you. Then I understand the name. Sales vitamin. It's like this. Whether you pick the guest or the knowledge that you share, it really gives you a good dose of vitamins. So thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. Look forward for everybody hearing this.